Good evening, everyone. It is 6 p.m. on October the 2nd. Bel Air Beach City Council meeting will now come to order. This month, Councilmember Livingstone will present the invocation.
Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us engage in meaningful discussion and guide us in our discussions. Allow us to grow closer as a group and nurture the bonds of the Bel Air Beach community. I ask, Lord Jesus, that you protect all those that reside in Bel Air Beach. I ask that you protect the police, our first responders, and come alongside those that are struggling today with financial hardships, mental health issues, family concerns, etc. I ask these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. Now please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Gentry, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Frank Baker.
Present.
Councilmember Belinda Livingstone.
Here.
Councilmember Leslie Otero. Here. Councilmember Lloyd Roberts.
Here.
Vice Mayor Jody Shirley. Here. Mayor Dave Gaddis.
Here.
City Manager Kyle Riefler.
Here.
And City Attorney Randy Mora.
Present. Thank you, Patty. All right, let's move right on into agenda item number 1, which is first order of business is to approve the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion.
Motion made by Frank Banker. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Lloyd Roberts. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the agenda is approved. Now we move to citizen comments. Any citizen would like to address the council about a topic not already on the agenda, please raise your hand and wait to be called on. We ask that you limit your comments to no more than 3 minutes. If any council member would like to respond to citizens' comments, please hold your responses until we reach the council comments at the end of the meeting. Are there any citizens who would like to address the council tonight? Yes.
Hello, Wendy Gaddis, 309 22nd Street. I'd like to give a quick update on the Bel Air Beach Community Foundation. First off, on the second shipment of the engraved bricks that are going out front, we had a delay with the vendor. Some of the bricks were out of stock, but the good news is they're back in stock and they should be shipping this week and hopefully being installed very soon. Next, on the 16th Street kayak launch project, the good news is the county has finally issued the permit, so hopefully construction on that will also begin soon. The Sea Oats project is on hold right now while the county looks at our dune restoration and what they're going to do there, so we're waiting for further updates on that. And lastly, bridge cleanup is going to be October 21st from 9 to 11 a.m. We're hoping to get a big turnout this time. The hurricane put a lot of debris and trash underneath the bridge, so if anybody can come help, we would really appreciate it. Gloves and trash bags will be provided, as well as some refreshments. And that's all we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Yass. Would any other citizens like to make a comment? All right, citizen comments are now closed. Up next is item 3, more presentation from the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office, beginning with the law enforcement report. We have no report. Well, in that case, we'll move right on to the code enforcement monthly report. Hello, Deputy Fletcher. How are you?
Good evening, everybody. Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. I want to apologize. I thought somebody was supposed to be here tonight. If not, I would have grabbed the notes. So I will look into get that report to you as soon as possible, and I apologize for that. For the code enforcement for the month of September, I was mainly busy with all the issues with the overgrowth, weeds, and grasses in the community, which we cleared up a lot of those. You notice on my report that a lot of those cases were open or automatically closed pretty soon thereafter because, again, we're getting a lot of compliance. The other is the unpermitted remodels and other type of construction nuisances. Again, a lot of these are people, again, doing work without pulling permits. And I'm happy to say that most of them are in compliance now. The other issue I wanted to address is under the categories of the boats, RVs, and clutter. In talking with the city manager, what I've been doing now has been issuing ordinance violations to these individuals. So last month I did issue 4 different violations. And again, people are now in compliance. And that's my report, and I'll stand for any questions.
Council.
Yes, sir.
I'm just curious on the failure to have the right permits. Are those typically, from a percentage standpoint, just a guess, are those homeowners that didn't pull the permits or contractors?
Majority of our contractors.
Okay. Do they normally, is it because they didn't know they needed to get one? Or the other option, which is they just thought it gets slipped by?
I will be honest with you, in my opinion, is they know they have to have them, they just see if they do the work without getting the permit full.
Okay. All right.
Any other questions or comments for the deputy? No? Thank you very much, Ira.
Thank you, sir. Again, I apologize for them not being
We
here.
do have the report, but
Okay.
it's also nice to have extra security.
Yes, sir. And again, I'll let Cap Pointer know. Thank you.
All right, item 4, presentation from the Pinellas Suncoast Fire and Rescue District by Chief Davidson. Hello, Chief.
Hello, good evening, everyone. The monthly report for Bel Air Beach for September. We had our second annual September 11th Memorial Walk, which was a great success. We had about 80 participants walking the 3.43 miles. It was a great turnout considering it was a Monday. So we're real happy for that. In September to Bel Air Beach, we had 26 emergency calls, 6 fire-related and 20 emergency medical-related. And also in the same month, we had 683 fire training hours and 110 EMS training hours. Overall, for the fiscal year 2023, in Bel Air Beach, there were 188 calls for service, 48 fire, and 140 EMS. Our annual call volume for the fiscal year, there were 4,042 emergency calls, with 3,308 being EMS, emergency medical services, and 734 being fire-related. For the year, there were 8,479 fire training hours and 1,032 medical training hours. Our fire prevention division that does our life safety inspections conducted for the fiscal year 462 annual inspections with 501 annual re-inspections, citing 1,522 violations. In the month of October, we'll be issuing a request for proposal for the building of our Fire Station 28 and our Emergency Operations Center on the mainland. We're hoping to be under contract hopefully in December. About a 1.5-year project, and that's where we'll run our emergency operations. And we're still in the works to build an additional fire station here on the northern end of North Beach, just south of the Bel Air Beach border, to better service Bel Air Beach. And we're currently working with the county to phase in transport rescue. We're looking at peak unit staffing beginning in March. We're still in talks about that. And then transitioning that into a full-time unit when that fire station is completed. We are very happy to say that we were awarded a FEMA SAFER grant to staffing for adequate fire emergency response. Just got the award 2 weeks ago. It was for a total over a 3-year period of $1,140,000. And that's fully funded by the government. And that's going to have us add 4 additional firefighters, which is ultimately going to improve our ISO rating to a Class 1 department, which is our current project. That's going to take about another year before we have an evaluation, but we're confident we're going to be brought up from a Class 2 to a Class 1 fire department. Very few fire departments in the nation have that rating, so we're very happy about that. And we just found out about the bridge cleanup, but we will be there.
Thank you, Chief Davidson. Do we have any questions or comments from the council? Yes, Mr. Roberts.
My wife and I were walking the beach about a week or so ago, and I hope this is under the category of misinformation. But a couple of citizens stopped me, we were having just a chat, and they said, you know, we heard that this large white house up here on Gulf Boulevard at the traffic light was going to be the new fire station. So I just wanted to take the opportunity, so hopefully if there's some people listening out there, you could answer that question.
No, that is not going to be the new fire station. What we're looking at is there's a vacant piece of property we've been negotiating with the Church of the Isles, which is just 3 blocks south of your border. And that's an ideal location for response to the area. And it's a 2-minute drive, so we'll have about a 2-minute response time here. But no, that was not a location that's ours.
Perfect.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions or comments for Chief Davidson?
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Chief. All right, we're on to item 5, which is quarterly board reports. Let's start out with the Board of Adjustments.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. I'm Mike Kelly, your chair for Board of Adjustment, to report on the last quarter. Although we only had one hearing 2 weeks ago in the month of September, we had 3 cases come up, which is nice for a change instead of just having one. And of the 3, we had a total of 6 variance requests. So you're allowed a maximum of 3. One particular person did request 3 separate items. One homeowner requested 2 items, and a third was just the 1. So a busy September. We've got another variance meeting coming up in October. We also have another variance meeting coming up in November. So the residents are keeping the Board of Adjustment busy, and the experience is overwhelming. So we're glad to see it. Gives us something to do.
Very nice. Council, any questions or comments? Yes.
Mike, are you seeing a trend in the variance requests, or the
Yeah.
same sort of requests? That
Yeah, it's,
maybe we should visit and
the big one is still pools. Yeah, I think one of the September variances was a pool higher than 18 inches above the grade of the road, crown of the road. And Cal and I are pretty sure our November meeting is another pool. It's still, you know, in the application process, but he's got a plan when the new planner comes in after the fiscal year. Is that right? Yes. To go ahead and incorporate a look at that ordinance that's causing all these pool variances. The other ones, we had 2 this past month that were docks, where there's just not enough water and you're not allowed to dredge. So because you can't do private dredging, they've come to the city to get at least enough water, as some folks have done in the past, especially right out here on Harbor Drive, south of City Hall, where it shoals in real bad. So 2 of those were 2 of our 3 variance requests for the main for September. The one coming up in October, Jody, is a little interesting. It's different. The board hasn't heard it in forever. It's regarding the minimum size lots to actually build on in Bel Air Beach. And that particular applicant has 3 variances coming up to us in October. So it'll be an interesting meeting.
Yeah, I think clearly the pools, when I did code review, that was something where I dug my feet in, couldn't get the rest of the team to agree with me on that, because that's a struggle. I had no idea that we didn't allow private dredging. That's news to me. Is that a city ordinance? Is it
No.
city?
From what was explained to us was that the county only allows maintenance dredges at this point. So if you've never had a dredge done on that particular property, then they're not going to give you a permit for it.
The resident who's just a house south of the park here hired an outside consultant we picked his brain for, 20 minutes, because he's so familiar with the west coast of Florida and explained it pretty objectively that if you've got any kind of seagrass or vegetation in the water, you will not even be considered for a maintenance dredge. Maintenance dredge has got to be clean.
Yeah, I would
Clean
think it would
fill.
be outfall.
I'm sorry?
I would think when you're dredging, it would be more the outfall debris, you know,
Correct.
sand and things like that come from the storm outfall.
Yep. Yep.
Along the lines. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, this guy does a lot of consulting up and down the coast, and actually presented a lot of information that was good for all of us. And we explained to him about the maintenance dredge that we had out here 20 years ago to get rid of the sandbar that the county did for us because it was clean. It was our first initial maintenance dredge. We've been turned down by the Army Corps of Engineers, but we got it approved, and the county did it at no expense to Bel Air Beach.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions or comments for Mr. Kelly? It sounds like if we get this pool issue resolved, you're not going to have much to do.
I know. We go back to waiting around for another one. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. All right, next up, the Citizens Advisory Council. Citizens Advisory Committee.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. This is Ron Seganik with the Citizens Advisory Council. The only meeting we had this past quarter was as our second title, which is the Audit Committee. And so we reviewed a draft of the budget with the city manager. We were fine. It was actually, I think, the second draft. And so we were supportive of what was being presented for last year's budget, which you guys have already presented.
Councilman? Thank you very much, Mr. Skinner. All right, next up is Parks and Recreation Board.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Hope you're doing well. Tammy Lavenda, Park and Rec Board. We just have a couple of quick updates. In the last quarter, we did have 2 new members to Park and Rec Board. So welcome Susan and Michael. We are very happy to have them. We are looking for some new fall items to sell with Bel Air Beach logo. I've mentioned this a couple times. If you've had any suggestions on things that you'd like to have that we haven't had in the past, please call City Hall or my cell phone number. Just a reminder that we did add a 3rd indoor yoga class, so if you're looking for that for the fall, please check the schedule on the Bel Air Beach City calendar. The Park and Rec Board for the last quarter has been diligently working on the 3 fall events that we have. The 3rd annual Halloween event is Saturday, October 28th from 10 a.m. to 12. Pets and pals, so please bring your kids, your grandkids, your puppers in their costumes. Monday, December 4th from 5 to 6 p.m. is the holiday social and Christmas tree lighting. And then on Saturday, January 13th is the Health and Wellness Fair. So we've been working on all of those events already, planning. I mentioned this before, but we did start welcome bags for new residents. So there's a couple of goodies in there, but more importantly, it's all the information that the new residents need just as they are moving into our community. But we do add information on local businesses. So we would like to get some things from some business owners in Bel Air Beach. So if you have any information or, I don't want to say coupons, but whatever you want to put in there to let residents know about your business, we would like to help promote that for you if you're interested. And then this isn't about the past quarter, but this Saturday's beach cleanup, I know there's a race and there's been signs and there's been some postings, but I just wanted to mention that on Saturday, which is always the beach cleanup, the race is just in Clearwater. The race that will sort of affect Gulf Boulevard and the bridge, they won't be closed, but that's on Sunday. So it shouldn't affect beach cleanup at all. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Lavenda. Do we have any questions or comments? I will say, hang tight, we're going to be giving some news about the beaches, and we may wind up having to postpone that.
Postpone beach
Beach.
this Saturday.
I will let you know.
Okay, awesome. Thanks.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
about the beach cleanup. It's going to be probably high tide around 7, 8 o'clock in the morning too. Probably very, very little beach to clean.
You're probably right. I don't have the exact dates yet, but we will discuss this whenever we get to the city managers. All right, item 6, the city attorney's report. Mr. Moore, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'll be talking tonight about various proposed charter amendments and some ballot language. Spent a considerable amount of time since our last meeting on that. Multiplicity of issues going on between beach renourishment and other agenda items that we have as we've now entered the new fiscal year. I do have to ask as just a general statement as we work with and through other agencies that commissioners be mindful of their roles individually and not collectively. You are individual members, you don't speak for the board, and so as you reach out to other agencies, other divisions of government, whether at the state level or otherwise, being mindful of your role and the representations you make in that regard. Otherwise, I have nothing else to report.
Council?
Mr. Moore, anything on that ham radio tower on H Street, talk to you.
You did talk to me. I followed up with his counsel. I've not received a substantive response yet. I don't have any information to report beyond the fact that the city, have submitted this to permitting for the county's review. Kyle and I spoke about this as recently as last Thursday and talking about additional correspondence with the county, but I don't have any information or updates on that personally.
Thank you.
Can I just add on our report, outstanding code violations, there is a little summary there.
Yeah, but this has been going on for, and I'm not blaming anybody.
I mean, this was first raised to me in July of 2022.
Right.
And depending on your perspective on the matter, it has not yet reached resolution.
Yeah, and Mr. Moore has been very sympathetic, but he's more or less handcuffed. Not saying that as an attorney.
I just want to note that it states that the applicant has gone to Pinellas County for a full independent assessment of the situation. So there's other people involved too. So just a note to residents.
For sure. I think Member Baker's concern is in as much as he's echoing sentiments or concerns raised to him by constituents, as it was submitted to permitting more than a month and a half ago, if not longer. And ordinarily, certain things don't typically take that long. However, this is a unique item, both at the local and county level, and I think as a result of that, people are having to review things they may not ordinarily find themselves reviewing, especially in this landscape. So it's definitely proceeding on a more unique path for all the various legal reasons we've talked about in the past. But the question's well taken, I just don't have more information.
Appreciate it.
And just for the record, this person is following the direction he was given by the magistrate, is that correct?
At this stage, yes, by the magistrate and more importantly by city administration at this stage.
Any other questions or comments for Mr. Moore? No? Thank you, Mr. Moore, I appreciate it. Up next, city manager's report. Mr. Riegler.
Thank you, Mayor. So, first off, we have the all of our underground project. The utility consultants in Florida are pretty much complete in its entirety of phase 1, and they're starting on phase 2. Duke, their binding cost estimate for phase 2, I requested it because originally we agreed that we would pay the phase 2 until this budget year, so I requested it. I'm still waiting on them to turn that into me so I can get that project rolling and get the materials ordered for that. But it's not slowing down utility consultants in Florida because they're already moving along with phase 2, and they're based on what they've experienced with phase 1. They're trying to put as much as possible in the right of way and not request any private easements from residents. And that's just been the way of it. It seems to be working out the best. There's plenty of room in the right of way, and Duke's been agreeable. So we've met out on site and made it work to the best for the residents in this project. The stormwater improvement project, we've been cleaning and videoing the pipes, as we talked about, we're about 90% complete as of today. A little bit more tomorrow, and then all that will go to Gemini Engineering, where they will complete the final design, make their recommendations based on our last discussion to council, and provide the bid documents to move forward with the project.
Any surprises up to this point?
No surprises. We did get video. I haven't seen it yet, but I was called the 4th Street, that check valve that is not functioning properly. Where the sleeve comes out of the seawall, the check valve is working, but there's the first joint of that sleeve is compromised, and it's leaking directly into it, into the pipe. So I'm going to give that to the engineer to figure out if it's as part of the project. So that's one check valve that was working, and then since then the pipe has eroded to the point where it no longer works correctly. The FMIT insurance, you saw that I got the answer to the deductible question on some of the property insurance. She provided us the different options, and I sent them to the council by email to look over. I don't know how any of you feel if you'd like to raise our deductibles for all other perils and named storm deductible. It does lower the insurance, but obviously, if we have damage, we're going to be paying more out of pocket to a certain point.
It didn't seem to me that it was worth making that type of a modification. Certainly, we would have some savings, but all it takes is one event, right?
Right. And we're currently budgeted for the original plan, which was that 5% named storm $1,000 deductible. So the best coverage we have. That's where they kept us. Okay, this brings us to the project that you mentioned earlier. I wrote it down on here as the Emergency Beach Erosion Control Project, but now it's been titled, after seeing the plans, the Post-Adalia Emergency Shore Stabilization Project, excuse me. And that is, we had a meeting today with the county contractor, which is going to be Gator Dredging and the county. It's in the planning process, and we're obtaining the easements necessary to do the project. Currently have the 3 easements. I should have the other 2 easements for condominiums by tomorrow. In speaking with Gator Dredging representatives, they at this point don't sound like they're going to start until Monday. I gave them the permit paperwork to fill out. They also need to complete forms to certify that they're going to, any changes they make to Morgan Park, they're going to restore it in the same condition or better. When I say changes to Morgan Park, it's going to be a large operation. We are gathering the MOT plans, putting together information to send out to residents, but it is going to be, they set up to 250 dump trucks full of sand daily. So that's going to start early in the morning, and that's when we're going to see the biggest lineup. The way the MOT design is they are going to use the center lane going south from Morgan Park all the way down to 19th to have a queue of trucks, and they need to modify the opening of the drive to Morgan Park for the trucks to turn in. They need to relocate temporarily the pavilion structure, and that is basically to allow the maximum amount of sand and trucks to get in and get out on a daily basis so that the project can be completed in a fast amount of time. Based on their experience of what they've done in the Treasure Island and St. Pete, the south portions of the beach, they feel that maximizing the amount of sand they can get in there and keeping the project timeline as short as possible is the best way to go about it. Right now, they're asking that the project spans 45 days, so that would be the closure of Morgan Park for a span of 45 days. They're also going to need to use the marina parking lot for staff parking, which they're going to shuttle down to Morgan Park. So the beach, the accesses have been closed because our overwalks are not usable with the drop-offs. The good news is they did say since they're going to do the entire beach and restore the dune systems, they're going to be putting a lot of sand out there, and they will work with us to build the sand back up where our overwalks are so that they are usable. So hopefully where the tide's coming in, what they can do will get us to a point where we need very little modification to those overwalks. Because in talking with the state, it started getting complicated when they were telling me that what they permitted for the overwalks, the beaches changed, so that no longer are they a permittable structure to be out as far as they are because the dunes have washed back so far, and they typically only want to allow you to extend about 10 feet off the dune system. So when you lose all the dune, you're kind of way out there, especially at 21st Street. We've seen that it's about 25 feet off the dune now. So this will help. So we're gonna have to see where it all ends up, but hopefully in the restoration of the beach and all the sand that the county is supplying us, it's gonna make our overwalks usable again. Let's see. So again, the pile up of the trucks, or the long queue of the trucks is going to be in the morning time because they're going to get up. They're going to start very early, and then the trucks are going to line up until they just start letting them come in when the sun comes up and dump in the sand. So you will expect that there's going to be a closure of that middle lane on Gulf Boulevard early every morning, 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday. And they'll have they're requesting the sheriff be out there to help control the traffic. And then from there, as each truck dumps, they're going to go back to the pit, which is somewhere in the center of the state, and refill it to another whole cycle of trucks. So that is not going to be as much of a pileup because it's going to be more spread out as they come through. So it shouldn't be as much of an interruption in the early afternoon. But that's right now the information we've been given. And we'll try to put that all together, the maintenance of traffic, and just a general overview to send out to the residents so that they're all aware of what is going on. Yes, question?
So you said it was going to come from the north to the south to 19th Street. So pretty much anybody that's north of 19th Street, they'll still have the ability to come south on another street to get down to 19th to come across, right?
Well, what they're going to do is they're going to have the center lane blocked off. They're going to be controlling traffic moving southbound as the trucks turn in and come out. So it will back up traffic moving south, but if you want to go around it by, I guess, Bayshore, that probably is going to be possible. But again, they'll be allowing traffic to flow south. It'll just be directed to allow the trucks to turn in and turn out, and then the traffic will turn in and turn out.
Okay. Yeah, I would recommend that if they could somehow make sure that they're not blocking 19th Street, that at least would give people north of 19th Street to use Bayshore to get back there and come out. But they want to avoid the option of trying to get in between the trucks.
I'll bring that up and see what they think about that.
What I recall them saying was that they didn't anticipate it being that much, but depending upon the efficiency of the trucks coming in, dropping off their load, and getting the heck out of there, it was very much possible that the middle lane could be blocked all the way down to the crosswalk. So it's an inconvenience. People are not going to be happy about it. It's going to be very noisy in the mornings. As soon as the trucks are all gone, they're headed to Orlando and they're making a U-turn and coming right back with more sand, and they're doing it again. So it's twice a day, and it's going to be a big hassle for a little while. But we have basically been begging for sand for several years now, and right now we have no coverage whatsoever. If a storm were to hit us, it would be devastating. So this is imperative. It must happen, And as a community, I ask everyone, please be patient during this operation and be mindful that we may be inconvenienced with not being able to access the beach. We know that Morgan Park is going to be closed. They're going to have to move the pavilion temporarily. There's going to be about 20 vehicles that are parked in the marina area. That it's going to be an inconvenience. We've asked them to park on the south end of the marina so that at least if you were trying to access your boat, you can get in on the north side. But this is something that must happen, and this is what we've all been waiting for. So the good news is the county is picking up the entire tab, and they're actually coming to our rescue. So I'm hoping that we'll get some more information out, and maybe something on the website and an email blast or two, just to remind everybody about what's going on, and truly how grateful we are to be in this position, because City Manager Riefler was able to scramble and get the few temporary easements that we needed, and the fact that I've been probably the most vocal person in the county. They put us right at the top of the list. So they said by the end of October, this project may be completely over and other communities may not get sand. So I consider it all a win and a blessing for Bel Air Beach. All right, would you like to continue?
Mr. Mayor, so when you mentioned to the crosswalk, are you talking about the 19th Street crosswalk?
Yes.
Okay, sure. Okay. So this is great. So this has to do with the rebuilding of the dunes, but this isn't rebuilding the beach like the system that we were talking about, restoring the beaches.
And now, correct me if I'm wrong, the way that they explained it was that they're going to be building our dunes to where they're about 10 feet high, and anything extra that they bring in becomes burned.
Yes.
And starts heading for the beach.
Awesome.
So we are getting sand. And then as soon as the dune construction is complete, the county is also hiring a professional company to come in and do the COs through our entire beach. So is it going to stop a hurricane? No, but it's certainly going to help us if we do get one. Yeah, come on up, Mr. Kelly.
Just want to ask, when does it start?
We don't have an exact date yet.
They're talking Monday.
Okay.
Because we have the race this weekend, and they wanted to start after the race.
And they were actually wanting to close Morgan Park tomorrow, if that tells you anything. But the race is this weekend, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And so they're purposely not working on Saturday for that very reason.
Right. Will the other, like Indian Rocks Beach be getting this too, or?
Indian Rocks Beach at this point is not, because they've not been able to secure their permits, or their easements rather.
Anything going to be done, since it's not really going to be going into the beach, but some of the overflow, I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of D7s, D9s pushing the sand. The problem is, it stops at 19th Street, we've got that big crater all the way going down south, and how much that is going to be taken out, you know, eventually.
Well, because this isn't your standard dredging where they're pumping from out of the water wet sand, they're actually bringing in dry sand, and they're starting at the seawall, whereas before they started building it inward. This is a different operation, and they seem to have enough confidence to spend over $20 million.
Yeah, it would have been nice because as the storm pulls the sand out, okay, we had a real high tide, we had a real low tide. We would have brought some equipment in there with guys that know how to run blades. At the real low tide, we could have pushed about 40 to 60% of that sand back up. Even the crater would since we didn't have any storms, I would have filled back in within 2 to 3 days and then push it back up. We probably would have saved about 67% of sand.
Well, it's amazing to me that they're bringing it all in from Orlando.
Good job.
Ms. Rico, would you like to continue? Sure.
Yes. So yeah, next on the list was the dune walkover modifications. Like I said, I've been talking to the state of permitting, but as we talked about, this project is going to change the layout of the beach, so we have to kind of see where it all ends up, and hopefully we can make our walkovers usable and open very shortly after that project is completed. I'm sure you all have heard at this point, our city clerk, Patricia Gentry, has announced her retirement date, and we need to start searching for the next clerk. So
I do have a question about that. Is this her last regular council meeting, or are you doing one more?
One more.
One more, okay. All right, then
Mayor, I'll call a
we'll
series
have
of
to be
special
party
meetings.
this.
I'll call a series of special meetings, don't worry about it.
So I sent you all the job description that's been updated, it's been reviewed by the city attorney. I'm looking for any additions that council would like to make before we post it, but I'd like to get it posted hopefully tomorrow, so we start getting applicants. The RFP contract negotiations continues. The Waste Pro told me they would have to me their reviewed side of the contract early this week. I will then pass along to our attorneys, and it's right now scheduled to be approved at the October 16th special city council meeting, which will be right before the work session on that day. So we have a 6 o'clock meeting. The RFP for auditing services, we're going to start to put that together. That's something we talked about when we were planning the budget. We're just coming up on the end of our current contract, and we need to go back out and find a new auditor for our future budget years. And then code review services. This is something we put money in the budget for, to have a professional planner with experience in code review, help our planning and zoning board review the code, make suggestions to clean it up and to update it to prevent having to have so many variances, and make the code flow and be more be up to date with the construction, planning, and zoning pieces of the code. One important thing though is that we do need to remember that the Senate Bill 250 that has to do with Hurricane Ian, and we fall within that zone of where we cannot increase the level of restrictions, or can't make a more restrictive code until, to be in effect before October 1, 2024 at this point. So when we talk about the pool code with the 18 inches, that would be something that would be less restrictive, so that's something that we could take care of this budget year before that. Some of the other stuff, if we are going to increase our restrictions, we can have it all planned out. We can start drafting the ordinances, and then when we come around to the expiration of that bill, then we could make our code adjustments then. So that's the plan. At this point, the city attorney and I are working on getting a piggyback agreement from another county that has done a similar code review. So,
Great. Any questions or comments for the city manager?
Just one quick one on the city clerk job description. Did you want any feedback on that now, or just give it to you later? I mean, it's not a big, it wasn't a big, it's just a very small item that when I was reading that under the qualifications, and not to be nitpicky, but I know sometimes we always try to come up with unique adjectives when we're working with documents like this. So if I look down at the qualifications where it talks about the knowledge of the laws, ordinances, and regulations, it just kind of startled me when I read complete knowledge, which that would be a toughie, I think, for anybody. So just something less than complete, like just knowledge of the laws and ordinances, or above it we use comprehensive. complete just kind of startles me a little bit. That I mean, maybe only Randy would be the only person that would have the complete knowledge of it.
Just right.
But
Sounds a lot like a practical nitpick.
it probably is.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Riegler. All right, now we're on to item 8, which is the city clerk's report. Ms. Gentry, you have the floor.
My report is just a short recap of the meetings we've had and the city email list, which you were just saying, you know, we're doing beach restoration. We'd like to grow our list, but it's not growing very fast. So we'd like to figure out a way to get the word out to get more people on our list so we can let them know what's going on, so.
Well, we do have a big digital sign out front for starters, and then we also have a nice website, and then that coupled with our constant contact or whatever service we use, I'm sure the word will travel fast.
Yes, we do. You can sign up right on the homepage of our website, so thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, good. Also, the fact that there's, 45 full-size dump trucks blocking Gulf Boulevard, that's probably going to be a very good indication that something's happening. All right, any questions or comments for Ms. Gentry? Well, I have one. Whenever I received the phone call that you had decided to retire, I wasn't sad. Not saying that I wanted you to leave, but I never want to hold anybody back from doing what they like to do. And you have served this community well, and it's been an honor to work with you. And we're not done yet. We have a couple more meetings, but I wish you the very best of luck. All right, we are on to the consent agenda, which is item number 9. This is for approval of the September 18th, 2023 final public budget hearing minutes. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion made by Leslie Otero. Do I have a second?
Second.
I'm going to give that one to Vice Mayor Shirley. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, one person opposes, but the consent agenda passes. All right, now we are up to the public hearings, beginning with item number 10. This is for consideration of ordinance 23-06. This will be a first reading. Mr. Moore, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. About 2 weeks ago, we had a work session on a series of proposed charter amendments. Took the feedback of the members present and distilled that into revised ordinances. We have the way that we're doing this. The ordinance calls for the election. The resolution has the ballot language. You don't adopt the resolution until after the ordinance. Ordinances take 2 readings, resolutions take 1. So you don't have the resolutions in your packets in there. That's on purpose. You do, however, before each of the ordinances in your packet materials, there's a summary of what the changes would look like if all were adopted and accepted by the electorate. Again, all you're voting on is whether or not to submit these questions to the electorate. If the electorate approved all of them, then the language that you see in yellow, highlighting with red text and underlined is how it would change. And then there's also, though the resolutions are not on the agenda tonight, to help with some of the confusion at the work session, I just made 2 pages. This is what the ballot language would look like if approved. With your indulgence, Mayor, I would say that we should go through these one at a time. Of course, they are ordinances. They each have to be read by title. So we'll start with the first one. This is Ordinance 23-06, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Bel Air Beach, Florida, submitting to the city electors a referendum question on the amendment of Section 2.02 of the Charter to increase the number of permissible consecutive terms for City Council members, including the mayor, from 2 terms to 3 terms, identifying the issue appear on said ballot, providing for renumbering, providing for the adoption of ballot language by resolution, providing for publication in accordance with the law, and providing for an effective date. This has been a first reading of ordinance 23-06 by title only. As the title suggests, Mayor, this is the ordinance that would change the language in the charter such that individual council members, including the mayor, shall be prohibited from holding office for more than 3 as opposed to 2 consecutive terms.
Thank you, Mr. Mora. Before we go to council debate, let's go to the citizens for comments. Would anyone like to comment on this proposed ordinance? All right, citizen comments are now closed. I'm going to need a motion to adopt ordinance 23-06. Would someone like to make a motion? Yes.
I'd like to move that we consider approving the ordinance 23-6.
Motion is made by Lloyd Roberts. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second is by Councilmember Livingstone. Mr. Roberts, you have the floor.
We discussed this a lot in a couple of workshops. I don't think it's necessarily imperative that we do this, but I think for the most part, most of the council felt, based on a lot of feedback that we've heard from Mayor Gaddis, of the benefits of being able to be in this position for 3 terms as opposed to 2 terms. In some positions that are available, that our city can be represented, oftentimes because we have a relatively shorter amount of time that we're eligible to be in our positions, some of those other positions with the county and other organizations, we're not thought of as being here long enough to actually be in those seats. So I think that's the main benefit of changing our current ordinances from 2 terms to 3 terms. There'll be some other changes you'll see down the road as we consider some of these other ordinance changes. But I think it makes the most sense for our city so that we're best represented within the county and possibly even the state. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. Do we have any other questions or comments on this? Yes, Mr. Banks.
Mr. Moore, could you refresh our memory again on how an alternate charter has to be reviewed?
I believe your charter has to be reviewed according to your charter in 6-year increments, I believe, off the top of my head. It doesn't prevent charter provision from being revisited sooner than that. My understanding is that you last reviewed your charter somewhere between 2018 and 2020, I believe. I don't think we're past that timeline.
And that said, we started discussing a bunch of charter changes earlier this year. We just went to vote. I think the electric voted 92% on making the changes back 2 years ago, or it's 2.5 years ago now. And I have a big problem with any charter changes 2 years after the electric votes these changes in. And extending these terms, you know, I go back to history to see where we went wrong and where we went right. And when Washington, the only president that ever received all the electoral votes, he declined to run a 3rd time. He noted when he left office and they wanted him to run the 3rd time, you need to establish an office, not a kingdom, but as a servant to the people. Jefferson, who probably was one of the smartest presidents we ever had, maybe the smartest man to serve in America, he noted specifically that through the 2 terms was enough for 1 person, and that might overextend the executive power by having a president serve more than 2 terms. We're now going to have council serving 12 years. That's a kingdom, in my opinion, and it's not needed. The electric was, the people clearly said 2 terms, 3 years apiece. Now, I'm sure you can buy a lot of votes with some cheese and wine this coming year and get this thing changed again. It doesn't benefit the city, and why would we want to do this? And I'm not going to go through I'm not going to make a speech on each one of these charter changes, but I'm 100% against it. Charters, council members charters are there for council to hold council accountable. Ordinances are for the residents to be held accountable. Just because a couple of council members don't like the way it's written or they're going to lose their seat, should not give council the opportunity to change it. Now, it does have to go to the voters, but I think this is just wrong. That's all I have to say.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Mayor. Do we have other comments from the council?
I just want to add that the reason this is being brought up has nothing to do with existing council members. Doesn't affect any of us in the positions we currently hold. It's for the future of Bel Air Beach. There have been some laws that have changed within the state of Florida that has created the need for us to take a look at our existing charter and to just be mindful of that. None of this goes into effect unless the voters vote on it.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Shirley. The reason why this came up is that recently the Florida legislature introduced a new law that requires the council on this level to do full financial disclosures, which is something that none of us want to do because we're a small community, we're not paid anything to do this job, and there's always going to be a possibility that someone might take advantage of that public knowledge. However, I truly believe that there's still some good people out there that are willing to actually take that risk and step up to the community and serve them with a quality that we all expect. Unfortunately, oftentimes someone may interpret a change to our ordinance as something that we're trying to take advantage of the community, and that is just not the case. So you're going to find that not only, number one, we start with extending the terms. Why would we want to extend the terms? Well, the first, we had a candidate that ran for mayor before me that no one knew. And he was elected, and we realized quickly that maybe that wasn't the best recipe for Bel Air Beach. A lesson that we learned from that is most likely we will never elect a first-term candidate as mayor in this community again. If we do, I'll be surprised. It could always happen. But certainly someone that we don't know running as mayor doesn't work well for me, and I don't think it works well for most people that I know in this community. So the formula is run once as a council member, run for mayor your second term. As soon as you become mayor, you have to start branching out into the community, and you start interacting with county and state officials, and also other municipalities. And it takes a while to build those relationships. Without building relationships, we don't get much. We have to really work hard and interact with our neighboring communities and again, the county and the state to make things happen. It's that third term that I believe is the most beneficial for Bel Air Beach. Not necessarily the candidate, because at the end of the day, what are you getting out of it other than benefiting the community that you live in? And so that was my whole reasoning for putting this ordinance together. And I hope that if we're able to put this on the ballot, that everyone will remember what I said tonight, that this is good medicine for Bel Air Beach. And that's all I have to say. Any other comments from the council? No? All right, well, let's put this to a vote. Patty,
Randy,
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I got on a roll here.
You've done everything just fine so far. I just wanted to interject to state that as we're talking about each of these, most especially because of the amount of time that was spent trying to make sure that they exist independent of one another, I want to make sure it's clear. It's tempting to talk about all of them collectively, and there is a collective effort here. But at the moment, we are just on Ordinance 2306, which is specific to changing the consecutive terms to 2 terms to 3 terms. So as you vote, you're only voting on that ordinance. We'll take each of them in succession.
Thank you for clearing that up. All right, Patty, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Baker?
No.
Councilmember Livingstone?
Yes.
Councilmember Notaro?
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Shirley?
Yes.
Mayor Gaddis?
Yes. So the first reading passes 5-1.
All right, Mayor, as we proceed to the next one, I did want to note one difference you'll notice in your agenda materials as you're flipping between these ordinances. Just as we've talked about some changes in the Florida statutes, one change that came with this legislative session is a requirement that each ordinance have a business impact estimate in the agenda that's published with the agenda. And so we've done that here. It's to take effect with the October 1 date. So that's what you'll see here, a business impact estimate. In each of these instances, no discernible impact. However, it is there to ensure absolute compliance in the event that we don't have any technical issues or challenges as we proceed. So with that, ordinance number 23-07, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Bel Air Beach, Florida, submitting to the city electors a referendum question on the amendment of sections 2.01, 2.02, and 2.07 of the charter to reduce the number of at-large members on the City Council, including the mayor, from 7 members to 5 members, to specify the timeline for transitioning to 5 members, and to adjust the corresponding voting requirements for official action of a 5-member council, identifying the issue appear on said ballot, providing for renumbering, providing for the adoption of ballot language by resolution, providing for publication in accordance with the law, and providing for an effective date. This has been a first reading of ordinance 23-07 by title only. Just so you know, the corresponding ballot language that's intended to accompany this, that is not in the ordinance, but it's what will be in the resolution to be adopted next month should this pass, is shall charter amendment number 2 title reducing the city council to 5 members from 7 members. And the ballot language would be shall the city amend the charter to provide for a city council composed of 5 at-large council members, including the mayor, as opposed to the existing language providing for a city council composed of 7 at-large city council members, including the mayor, and adjust the corresponding voting requirements for the council to take action. What you'll see here in the body of the ordinance is 3 separate sections had to be amended to make this effective. The first 2 are, one is just an outside reference to there shall be a council of 7 members, changing that to 5. That's an easy one. The second language that is changed is to add language to the election and terms section of your charter to explain how this would happen. I will tell you that the challenge with this and the next 2 proposed ordinances was making sure that each contemplated the possibility of the other without being dependent on the other. And so, for example, in our last work session, this language contemplated this happening in the March 2025 election. Well, if we move the election, then that language isn't going to make sense. And that's an if, but that possibility exists that the voters have the ability to approve one and not the other 3, or any one and not the others, or combination thereof. So the language is beginning with the next regular election for the council member seats whose full terms of office at the time of their election or appointment were originally set to expire in March 2025, the city shall transition to a 5-member council. So basically, Mayor Gaddis and I believe Member Roberts and I believe Member Livingstone are all on that side. Their seats are all on that cycle. So when those, and I believe one more, maybe Member Notaro. I don't have the chart in front of me, but suffice to say, anybody whose term is scheduled presently to end in 2025, that's whenever those seats come up for election, and whenever is dependent on the other charter amendments, whenever those come up for election, what we would do is instead of having the mayor's seat and 3 council member seats up for election, you would have the mayor's seat and 1 council member seat up for election, such that your voting cycle going forward will be 3-2, 3-2 in terms of the seats that are up. So that was the easiest way to do that. The challenge again being you serve an at-large seat, so you couldn't say, you know, the District 2 seat or the District 6 seat. You had to do it based on when your terms end. So that's why it reads that way. And then the final proposed change in the ordinance is the quorum requirement. Your charter presently has explicit language that at least 4 members of the council are required to take for any affirmative vote to pass, because it's 4 of 7, which is a majority of 7. I just changed the language to say a majority of the council. So that way, it wouldn't make sense to have 4 out of 5 be the supermajority requirement going forward for all business. So those are the proposed changes in this ordinance. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Before we move forward with questions from the council, let's go to the citizens for comments. Would anyone like to comment on proposed ordinance 23-07? All right, citizen comments are closed. Before we continue, I'm going to need a motion to adopt ordinance 23-07. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Vice Mayor Shirley. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Roberts. Vice Mayor Shirley, you have the floor.
I think our city attorney did a pretty good job explaining it. I have nothing more to add.
Any other questions or comments from the council?
Just a comment. I would like to commend Mr. Moore on this. We discussed this a lot during the last work session, and trust me, please, when I tell you that understanding and having this thing flow is not easy. And he did a fantastic job of tying everything together on these various ordinances. I went through it initially when we first started talking about this and went home and said, I think I'm just going to figure out how this is going to work. And after 17 tries, I finally decided I'm just going to let him work about it. So he did a fabulous job on this. And I think the 3 people that actually come up with the 3 seats in 25 are myself and Vice Mayor's and Mr. Zabel's seat.
Yes, that's
right.
right.
25.
That's right, thank you.
But yeah, so great job.
I second that. Any other questions or comments? No? All right, I'm going to just go ahead and spell it out for those of you that are not aware of it. We did, I actually did a survey of all of the municipalities in Penelope County. And come to find out, we were one of the smallest municipalities with the most members. We were compared with Largo. We were compared with St. Petersburg. It really just didn't make sense. Between that and also the fear that we would not have enough candidates in each election, this makes perfect sense. So now that I've spoken, would anyone else like to comment on this? No? All right, Patty, let's take it to a vote, please.
Councilmember Baker?
No.
Councilmember Livingstone?
Yes.
Councilmember Notero? No. Councilmember Roberts?
Yes?
Vice Mayor Shirley?
Aye.
Mayor Gabus?
Aye. So it passes 4-2. That is the first reading, and it is approved.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The next ordinance on the agenda is ordinance number 23-08, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Bel Air Beach, Florida, submitting to the city electors a referendum question on the amendment of sections 2.02, 2.04, and 5.05 of the Charter to increase the term of office for individual council members, including the mayor, from 3 years to 4 years, and to amend the regular election schedule to accommodate such terms, identifying the issue to appear on said ballot, providing for the adoption of ballot language by resolution, providing for publication in accordance with law, and providing for an effective date. This has been a reading of ordinance number 23-08 by title only. just as I did with the previous one, I'll read the proposed ballot language that would accompany this. The title is Increasing Term of Office from 3 years to 4 years. And the language is, shall the city amend the charter to provide that each individual term of office for city council members, including the mayor, shall be for 4 years as opposed to the existing 3-year term, beginning with the officials elected in 2024, and amend the regular election cycle to accommodate the longer election terms. So that's the ballot language. I do think it's worth looking at the precise language that's been added here. I'm not going to read it chapter and verse, but I will tell you this was the most involved of the proposed amendments for a few reasons. I think that your points were well taken during the work session, that if we move to a 4-year schedule but stay on 4-year terms, but stay on the current election cycle, what would happen is we would have an election in March 2024. Those people would serve for 4 years. So they would serve till 2028 if this passed and was approved by the voters. And then the next cycle would be 2025 and go for 4 years. So they would serve till 2029. So if we didn't change anything, we would have an election in 2025 and nothing in 26, nothing in 27, and then again in 28, rapid fire, two new votes, 28, 29, and then again for these gaps. And so there was a concern articulated by the council, or at least by some members of the council during the work session, that we should keep those staggered terms. And so this ordinance accomplishes both changing the language from 3 years to 4-year terms, which is a simple amendment. You see that in 2.04, for example, for the mayor. But what it does is in 2.02 says that commencing with the 2024 election, if this passes at the 2024 election, whoever wins for the seats that are vacant, with the exception of the vacancy being filled for Mr. Zabel's seat, which we can address separately, but excuse me, the regular term seats that are up for election in 2024, if this passes, would serve until 2028. If it fails, they'll stay right on schedule for their 3-year term. So the voters are simultaneously electing who would serve and how long they'll serve for that term at the March election if this passes this council. And then again, the election cycle is altered so that we would go, as suggested earlier, 2024. Then the positions that are scheduled to end in 2025 would move to 2026 whenever we have an election in 2026 again, because I couldn't presume that the ballot measure for November versus March elections would pass. And so you would go to 2026, and then that way again, it'll go 24, 26, 28, 30. So every 2 years, you will have an election with this change and avoid those larger gaps in between. And again, it'll be that 3-2, 3-2 cycle discussed a moment ago. So that's how this is contemplated to work. Happy to answer any questions.
Council, I will say that it makes perfect sense as long as you don't explain it to us.
I mean, listen, I will tell you, as convoluted as that may have seemed, your poor city manager sat in a conference room where I did this all on a dry erase board and figured it out. It is more involved, and that is at your request based on some of the feedback given last time. There's cleaner, simpler ways that just says 3 to 4, but then you don't think of the consequences of it, and it's cleaner, but it's not necessarily the result you want big picture.
All right, well, let's go to the citizens for comments on this particular ordinance, 23-08. Any citizen comments? No?
You will be tested on your way out to make sure you understand.
Especially you, Mr. Kelly. All right, seeing there are no citizen comments, they are now closed. I'm going to need a motion to adopt ordinance 23-08.
So moved.
Motion made by Lloyd Roberts. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Mayor Shirley. Mr. Roberts, you have the floor.
Thank you. So the other day I turned on the television, I have Spectrum, and so it defaults to Bay News 9. And then I'm immediately going to change it to the station I really wanted to watch. And as Bay News 9 came in, they said, we're not going to talk about the changes that the city of Tampa is now going through with the voting. So I said, oh, listen to this. They were doing exactly this. And the net of it really is they wanted to change their elections to be in November, which we're going to talk about later, of the same years that we have the general election for our country and the midterms. They wanted to do that for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's going to save them a lot of money by doing it just those times. I won't bore you with the detail on that, but more importantly was the turnout. There were statistics that said when we have elections the same time as the general election, they had like a 65% turnout. The elections that were not tied to either the general election or the midterms, they had like a 17% turnout. And I think that makes sense. People come out for those larger elections. So that's really what we're trying to do here, is to try to get our elections tied in the November election of even years, just for that. So in order to do that, this is one of those things that need to be changed. We're on a 4-year term. If we're on a 3-year term, obviously you're only going to be on odd numbers. Even if you start the first year on an even number, 3 years later, you're automatically in an odd, then you go back to an even, doesn't work. So that's the main reason we want to do this.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts, for totally ignoring Mr. Moore on sticking to the topic, but I felt the same way that these two had to be joined for it to make sense. Why would we want to, extend the terms? Why do we want every 2 years? Specifically so that we can line up with the presidential and midterm elections. Any other comments or questions from the council on this one? No? All right. Patty, can we take a roll call, please?
Councilmember Banker? No. Councilmember Livingstone?
Yes.
Councilmember Notaro? No. Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Shirley? Aye. Mayor Gaddis?
Aye. And so first reading passes 4-2, ordinance 2308. And Mr. Moore, do you have something to add about that one?
Not about that one, but I'm prepared to add to 2309. The Ordinance 2309 is an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Bel Air Beach, Florida, submitting to the city electors a referendum question on the amendment of Section 5.05 of the Charter to adjust the regular election cycle from March to November, contingent on the passage of a separate ballot measure governing the duration of council member terms, identifying the issue to appear on said ballot, providing for the adoption of ballot language by resolution, providing for publication in accordance with the law, and providing for an effective date. This has been a reading of ordinance number 23-09 by title only. As I've done with the two previous, I'd read the ballot language, proposed ballot language here that will be before you next meeting. Charter Amendment number 4, conditionally aligning local election cycle with federal election cycle in November. If a majority of the city's electors approve an amendment extending council member terms to 4 years, shall the city also amend the charter to provide that its regular local elections for council members shall be held in November in general alignment with the federal election cycles, as opposed to the existing requirement that regular local elections occur in March. Yes to amend the provision, no to retain. I appreciate your admonition to Mr. Roberts. I will tell you that in drafting these, there was a challenge in understanding that the way that you folks had talked about this, these were linked. One of the explicit directions I was given at our work session was, we don't really care about having our elections in November if we can't get our election cycles changed in a way to these even numbered 4-year terms, such that we could stay on that same November cycle. But when I asked, do you want it to work both ways? The answer was no, we don't want them to be each contingent, just contingent one way. And so that's how this was written. It is very, I think, clear to the voters that number 4 is conditional on the passage of number 3. If number 3 fails, number 4 is going to fail no matter what the vote is. But it still needs to have a passing vote to be approved. And so other than that, in terms of the body of 2309, you can see 5.0, the language in 5.05 says beginning with the regular election to be held in 2026. So it would be very, very clear that beginning with the regular election to be held in 2026 on the Tuesday next after the first Monday in November, then this would happen. I can write this like that because we're only doing this if we move to 4 years. So we already know in the 4-year ordinance, or the 4-year ballot language, we are extending the terms of a few seats so that they would extend all the way into November 2026. We're into 2026. I know it's a little convoluted. I'm sorry. It's the only way you can make all of that work. But basically, if the voters approve the 4-year term and they approve this, then the first time you have an election, then the very next election after the March 2024 election will be in November 2026.
Right.
That will be the gap. You'll jump no March 2025, no November 2025, no March 2026. November 2026 will be your next election were they to approve everything. And so the people elected in 2024 will serve till 2028, and the people elected in 2026 will serve until 2030 and every 4 years thereafter, if it is approved by this council and the voters.
Thank you for explaining that, Mr. Mora. Let's go to the citizens for comments. Any citizen like to make a comment? No. All right, citizen comments are now closed. I need a motion to adopt ordinance 23-09.
So moved.
Motion made by Lloyd Roberts. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Mayor Shirley. Mr. Roberts, once again, you have the floor.
Yeah, I think I cheated last time, kind of already talked about this somewhat, so pretty self-explanatory. We just want to get on the 4-year cycle, and that's why we want to do that.
Any other questions or comments? No? All right, Patty, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Bankard,
No.
Councilmember Livingstone,
Yes.
Councilmember Notaro,
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Shirley,
Aye.
Mayor Gaddis.
Aye, so ordinance 23-09, first reading is approved. The vote was 5-1. All right, now we are on to item number 14, consideration of ordinance 23-10. This is first reading. Mr. Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is ordinance 23-10, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Bel Air Beach, Florida, amending section 38-87 of the city's code of ordinances governing the permitting process for special events, associated costs and fees, and potential penalties for unpermitted or non-compliant special events, providing for the implementation of administrative actions, providing for codification, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. There's been a reading of ordinance 23-10 by title only on first reading, Mr. Mayor. We workshopped this about 2 weeks ago. This is the ordinance that was in part the product of some concerns raised by activist organizations and members of the community concerning special event permitting. And this is the ordinance done in collaboration with that organization to reach a better product for the community and its code.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Let's go to the citizens for comments. Crickets. All right, citizen comments are now closed. Before we continue, we're going to need a motion to adopt ordinance 23-10. Would someone like to make a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Vice Mayor Shirley. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Roberts. Vice Mayor Shirley, you have the floor.
I think we workshopped this pretty well, and it's been an ongoing work in progress trying to fix an ordinance that was loosely assembled years ago. Mr. Moore did a great job pulling it together and working with the outside agency that brought it to our attention, and I think it's something we should move on.
I agree. It was a great collaborative, I guess, authoring of this ordinance. It was something we had to do. Otherwise, it could very well be challenged, and the last thing we want to do is wind up in court. So because of this entire process, we now have, as Mr. Moore says, a better product in our code of ordinances when dealing with events. Any other comments? No? All right, Patty, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Banker?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Livingstone?
Yes.
Councilmember Notero? Yes. Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Shirley? Aye. Mayor Gillis?
Aye, and so ordinance 23-10, first reading is approved unanimously. All right. Now let's go to item number 15, which is consideration of ordinance 23-05, which will be the second and final reading. Mr. O'Malley, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is ordinance 23-05, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Bel Air Beach, amending chapter 18, section 18-5 of the city's code of ordinances entitled Time for Qualifying, removing the specified qualifying period, providing for the establishment of the qualifying period by resolution of the City Council, providing for the incorporation of recitals, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. This has been a second and final reading of ordinance 23-05 by title only.
Mr. Mayor, before we go to citizen comments, would you please give a summary as to why this ordinance was created?
Yes, happily, Mr. Mayor. So the your code presently provides that no person shall qualify as a candidate in any regular city election prior to 8 a.m. on the 88th day preceding the next regular election, or later than 12 noon on the 81st day. It's a very fixed set period. It is inflexible. There's not really a lot of leeway to change that as it's written. And so as if you apply that to the March 2024 election, for example, it would fall past the deadline that the city needs to notify the supervisor of elections of the ballot language and qualified candidates. And it would also span the Christmas holiday such that and a weekend such that there would really be 2 or 3 business days during which somebody could qualify, which would present challenges to candidates interested in the position. And so in order to rectify that, what we've done is change that language to just say, we'll do a resolution. This is very common in other communities to set the qualifying period by resolution, which you only do on 1 reading. That resolution is in our materials tonight, and we'll be reading and addressing that in a moment. But that's why this was written and addressing your election code.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Let's go to the citizens for comments. Would anyone like to comment on ordinance 23-05? All right, citizen comments are now closed. I'm going to need a motion to adopt ordinance 23-05. Again, this is the second and final reading. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Vice Mayor Shirley. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Roberts. All right, Vice Mayor Shirley, you have the floor.
I have nothing more to add. It's got a pretty good explanation of what we're voting on here.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to comment on this ordinance? No? All right, Patty, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Banker?
Yes.
Councilmember Livingstone?
Yes.
Councilmember Notero? Yes. Councilmember Roberts?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shirley? Aye. Mayor Gillis?
Aye, and so ordinance 23-05 is approved and adopted. Thank you, everyone, for getting that one done. All right. Hey, we've made it to the regular agenda. Item number 16, consideration of applicants to fill vacant city council seats. Tonight, we have 2 candidates. The first is Mark Chester, and the second is Michael Hayward. Tell you what, let's do it this way. Before we go to citizen comments or anything like that, is Mr. Chester here, and would you like to introduce yourself to the council?
And here.
Please come up to the podium. Give us your full name and address.
Hi, Mayor and council members. I am Mark Chester, and I am a resident here in Bel Air Beach. My address is 429 22nd Street. And we've been living here for 4 years, or so my wife tells me.
Anything else you'd like to add?
Oh, yeah. I put myself out here once before, and I never really thought of doing something like this 3 or 4 years ago. But I really love our community, and I am willing to do whatever I can to help our little community stay like it is, and run smoothly, efficiently. And, I'm willing to do that. I enjoy being retired and being critical of how football games go, the way I would do it if I was coaching. But if I do something, I really put myself into it, and am willing to put in the time and effort that is necessary to do the very best that I possibly can.
Thank you, Mr. Chester. Don't sit down just yet. Would any council members like to ask a question of Mr. Chester? No? All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Next up is Mr. Hayward. Would you like to introduce yourself to the council?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, city council members and city officials. My name is Michael Hayward. I'm a resident. I live on Hibiscus Drive East. I've been a resident here for 31 years, so I grew up with the city pretty much. It's all I ever know. I moved away for college and grad school. I lived a couple of years in Japan teaching English, but that was it. And I've been back here ever since. In college, I studied political science, so I know how local government works. I took coursework in local government. In high school, I was part of Boys State, so I was chosen to go to Tallahassee to work on local government issues as well. And for grad school, I studied international relations in DC, and I worked for the State Department. So I know how even federal government works, and I've been in multiple high-level meetings throughout the government. And I came home because my mother got sick, and I stayed with her and helped her out. And after she passed, I just got comfortable here again because it's home. And I've been home ever since that. And I think it's the opportunity presented itself, and I want to take part and give back to my community.
Thank you, Mr. Hayward. Do we have any questions from the council for Mr. Hayward? No? All right. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Wait, I do have a question. Are you working now? Because I'm trying to I'm looking at your resume and I'm not really seeing that.
I work for a movie production company right now. I run movie productions, but it's not set. So it's whenever the opportunity
You have
arises.
some flexibility in your
Yes.
schedule. Okay,
Yep.
all right, great, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hayward. All right, let's go to the citizens for public comments. Would anyone like to speak on behalf of either of these candidates? All right, citizen comments are closed. All right, before we can move forward with voting, I'm going to need a motion to fill our currently vacant council seat. Do I have a motion? Motion made by Frank Bankard. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Lord Roberts. Mr. Bankard, you have the floor.
I think we got two good candidates here. Let's vote.
Everybody good with that? All right, let's move forward. Patty? Let's see, we all have our ballots now, right? Okay. All right, so you can only select one candidate. So let's go to it. I'm sorry. You gotta get taller.
Thank you. While she's collecting those, I would like to make a comment. Frank already said it. I think we have two very qualified candidates.
I am ready.
Councilmember Bankard voted for Michael Hayward. Oh, for heaven's sake. Councilmember Livingstone voted for Mark Chester. Councilmember Notero voted for Mark Chester. Councilmember Roberts voted for Mark Chester. Vice Mayor Shirley voted for Mark Chester. Mayor Gallus voted for Mark Chester.
Thank you, Patty. And I'd like to thank both candidates for volunteering to serve our city. The winner is Mark Chester with 5 votes. And again, Mr. Hayward, I appreciate you stepping up, and please consider applying for any of our boards or committees as they come available. Now, welcome to our council, Mr. Chester. Patty, would you like to swear Mr. Chester in?
Sure.
I do solemnly swear that I will support, honor, protect, and defend.
And I will support, honor, protect, and defend
The Constitution of the United States.
the Constitution and government of the United States
And the state of Florida.
and of the state of Florida.
And I am duly qualified to hold office.
That I am duly qualified to hold office
Under the Constitution of the state.
under the Constitution of the state
And under the charter of the city of Bella Beach.
and under the charter of the city of Bella Beach.
And that I will well and faithfully perform.
That I will well and faithfully perform the duties of council member
Which I'm now about to enter.
on which I am now allowed to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God. Okay. Okay. She's expired.
Name tag.
Thank you, Patty.
Thank you so
And for Mr. Mayor, just for clarity in the record going forward, congratulations, Mr. Chester, on being appointed. Your term will run through the March 2024 election, at which point the seat will be up for regular election. And we'll address that in the resolution as well.
That's next.
Yes.
Okay, okay, great. All right, well, let's get to the first official order of business for Mr. Chester. This is item number 17. It's consideration of resolution 2023-10. Mr. Moore?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Resolution 2023-10, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Bel Air Beach, Florida, calling for a general election to be held on March 19th, 2024, for the purpose of electing 3 city council members for a full term of office and a 4th seat for the remaining tenure of a recently vacated council member position, to establish the qualifying date and process for persons seeking elective office for the 2024 municipal election, authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with the supervisor of elections, establishing a polling place for the March election, authorizing Pinellas County Supervisor of Elections to verify candidate petition cards and facilitate the election process, and establishing an effective date. This has been a reading of Resolution 2023-10 by title only. This is a single reading as it is a resolution. The resolution in large part is administrative. It is to document for our purposes and with the supervisor of elections what we are calling for. You have 3 seats whose regular cycle is scheduled to be on the March 2024 ballot. I don't think there's any real controversy or question there. There was some discussion about what happens with members Abel's seat. And the language in your charter as it reads contemplates that the person appointed by the council upon a vacancy shall serve until the next regular election. Our next regular election is scheduled to be held in March 2024. What will happen is that election for that seat will do nothing to change the cycle that seat is on. What it will do is whoever is elected in March 2024 to the seat vacated by member Zabel will serve for the remainder of that term. Ordinarily, I would tell you they will serve until March 2025. When they will serve until is in part a function of how all these charter amendments function. Because if those terms are extended through November 2026, then that may change that calculus. However, they will serve for the remainder of the natural term of Councilmember Zabel's office upon the March election. How are we going to do that was a question we had at the last work session, and that's provided for in the resolution in section 4 sub A and sub B. And the way that it reads basically is the 3, assuming you get 4 people who run, the 3 people, and as I view this, we may have to address this. Assuming you get 5 people to run, the 3 people who get the most votes will get the regular seats. The 4th person will get 4th place will get that shorter term. That's how that's designed to function. As I review the resolution, I'm realizing that it doesn't address what would happen if in the event you don't have a full, if only 4 people run, how will that be decided? That could be construed as a tie that would be resolved by your charter's language on, drawing lots and straws and the like. And I may, in speaking with the clerk and manager, wish to do another resolution in November to clarify that. But assuming you have 5 people such that you're having an election and a contested election, the top 4 vote getters would fill those seats. 1st place, 2nd place, 3rd place, if you will, would take the ordinary seats. 4th place would fill Councilmember Chester's seat. And Councilmember Chester, you are fully eligible, provided you remain a qualified elector of the city. You are fully eligible to run again in earnest to run for the position in March.
Thank you for clearing that up for us.
Yeah.
Let's go to the citizens for comments. No? All right. Citizen comments are now closed. Before we continue, I'm going to need a motion to approve resolution 2023-10.
Motion.
Discussion
Yeah, can we have a question?
or after the motion, discussion?
The discussion always happens after the motion.
Okay.
I'll move.
You did the first one?
I'll move it.
Okay. Leslie Natero, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Frank Bankert. Ms. Natero, you have the floor.
I think that this resolution is very clear. Section 3, where he talks about the 3 vacancies, and then the other one gets the rest of Mr. Zabel's term. I think it's clear and it makes sense.
And as I was talking about it as an aside with the city manager a moment ago, one of the suggestions he had was, if we have 4 people qualify, we can still just run the election just to see functionally who's getting that 4th seat. That's one approach we could do. Or to save on the election, we would have to address how that would be resolved without the need for one. Mea culpa that I didn't address that here in the various ordinances on elections, that was an oversight that we can still address. I would appreciate your insights on that. If you would prefer that you run the election if there are only 4 people. Of course, if you have less than 4 people run, then those 2 or 3 would get full terms. But at 4, do you want to run an election, or would you have that rather resolved by lots on who gets the short straw and therefore the short term?
Yeah, I would say that if we only had 4 candidates, the first question would be to go to each candidate and see if anyone would consider doing the short term. And then that would save us from having to at least have that ballot language in. But we have other ballot language anyway, so I don't know if there'd be any.
You're running an election regardless, for sure.
Have we always treated the replacement? I don't recall. They always in the past, and maybe it's just been handled wrong. But when we had to replace someone on council, they stayed on through that term, through that person's term.
That may be the case. Candidly, I didn't go through the entire history of it, in part because all of that is fact intensive. For example, Member Livingstone was appointed in June of last year. It feels like she's just served a longer time than Member Chester might get to, but it's really just a function of when Member Gunn's seat is up in March. Whether or not it was done in the past, to me, doesn't command the result. To me, I looked to the plain language of your charter. I reviewed that with my fellow charter officials. Candidly, I reviewed it with my colleagues as well to say, am I missing something here? And the unanimous consensus of reviewing the language of your charter as it reads is that they are appointed and serve until the next regular election. And nothing and the rest of the charter specifically dictates the cycles that seats are up for election. So that would run counter to other language, and you have to read a document like that in harmony with all its terms. So that's how I got to that result. I can't tell you that it was never done the other way. Had I been your city attorney at the time, I don't think I would have interpreted it that way.
In the way that I see this, at first I didn't agree with you at all. And then I realized that really we're not flipping the cycle. What we're doing is if you have an elected official who resigns early in his term, you're giving the council to speak on behalf of the citizens. There's still a whole greater than 50% of a term that we should take it to the citizens to allow to vote for. But if it were less than half the term, then then this is the case of like Mark Chester here.
I don't know that it's really about how much is left in the term as much as it is, are you having another election again on a regular cycle, not a special election? Are you having another regular election? If so, the documents of your charter and the spirit of the representative democracy that we have say, well, then let the voters weigh in. You're having an election anyways. You guys filled the seat as a stopgap measure so that we could continue to do business with the full complement of 7 members and avoid 3-3 ties and the like where we didn't need them. But now the voters are going to be weighing in on 3 other seats. Why not just have them place everybody? I think is really more the thrust of it. It's not if he had been in his last year, but we're having a regular election, same result. And that is what's happening. Member Zabel's seat would have been, forgetting all the charter amendments, would have been up in March 2025. It's 1 year left in the term on its ordinary cycle. So it's not really about how much is left in the term as much as the seat was vacated before a next regular election. Had Member Zabel resigned in April 2025, whoever filled that seat, whether it was Member Chet, in April of 2024, that person would serve 11 months. And they would never come up for election because there's no regular election between that and the end of the term. So that's the only reason where time comes in if you're less than a year left because you don't have a regular election.
Or if it's after the qualifying period, then
Yeah.
obviously they stay.
Well, yes, that would be another issue. Yeah. So if you can't qualify in time. So that's why this is working this way. My one request of you as we look at this resolution would to be, I'd appreciate consensus on how you want to handle if you have exactly 4 members qualify, how would you like that handled? That's again,
my shortcoming in drafting this, that it's not drafted, but it's not in there. But I would appreciate council insight on what you'd like to see in that instance. I've heard Mayor Gaddis's recommendation that you see if we can't get somebody to volunteer for the shorter term. But is that the will of the body, or at least the consensus of the body?
Comments? Yes.
So I think it's clear that if we have 5 or more candidates for the March election, then we definitely will have an election.
Yes, sir.
That's clear. If we have 4 or less, but if we have 4 exactly, even though it may cost, it will cost money to have an election. I guess my gut feel is it makes sense to go ahead and do that for the sole purpose of knowing what our citizens, how they voted. So who was 1, 2, 3, and 4, and as you stated earlier, whoever comes out to be 4th out of the 4 would take Mr. Zabel's seat.
Right, and understand you are having an election for the, based on, at least at this point, you have first reading. I won't presume second reading passes, but should it pass in the same manner, then you will have issue elections on the ballot at the very least.
Interesting.
Any other comments? Nope. All right.
I'm sorry, Mayor, I don't mean to interrupt your presiding officer. I'm looking for consensus direction. One of the challenges I had in drafting the charter amendments was I wanted consensus direction. I had 1 or 2 of you speak to it. It'd be really helpful to get the views of those members who have not spoken.
You'd like this answered now?
It would be most helpful. Yes, I would.
We can do that. Okay, well, let's start with Mark Chester.
Well, I will tell you this, there's a big difference between serving a year and a half as opposed to 5 months.
Yes, sir.
And I'm not sure I agree with you on the filling. We've had this happen before in our country where they appointed somebody president after they resigned and they didn't have an earlier election. They filled out the term. So
yes, and I would say those were bound by different documents.
Yeah, no, so you might have had more people participate in this if it wasn't for only 5 months, as opposed to fill the entire term. That's my 2 cents.
I hear that, understanding that we're here now, if 4 people qualify, how would you like that resolved in terms of, would you prefer that we resolve that internally, meaning draw lots or straws or something to see who's full place? Or do you think in the instance where there are 4 qualified candidates that should be submitted to the elector?
I always like for the people to be able to vote on things. I'm also in favor of saving money and not wasting money whenever that's possible. So.
Okay.
You're putting a lot of pressure on somebody who just got up here.
Well, left or right. Leslie, would you like to weigh in on this?
Yeah, as far as saving money by if we only have 4 people qualified, we're gonna have the election anyway because of the amendments to the charter.
Awesome.
So having another question on there is not going to be that significant, having the council member election on there.
So is that, you would prefer the vote in that instance?
Pardon?
So is that you saying you, in an instance where 4 people qualify, you think a vote would be more appropriate? As a solution?
Have them election.
Thank you.
Put them on the ballot.
I would say, yes, put them on the ballot, but it still shakes out to how do we determine who gets what seat, right? So
It's
then
whoever gets the least out of those 4, whoever gets the lowest number gets the 1-year term, or what would ordinarily be the 1-year term, the shortest term.
we don't have any other option, right? I mean, you have to put them on the ballot. What else are you gonna do?
The other option is to treat it as a 4-way tie. And in your code, a tie is resolved as evidenced here by drawing lots or something else.
So if you treat it as you can treat it as a tie, or you can submit it to the voters. If you treat it as a tie, we would draw lots or straws or something.
And that's assuming we don't end up reducing the council, that vote passes in March 2 to reduce the council to 5, then you're gonna have.
That doesn't impact this cycle, though.
Okay, it'll be, so that vote was, it's not retroactive, I mean, it doesn't happen at the same vote.
No, the cycle down to 5 happens at the conclusion of that seat's term, that 4th seat's term. So they would serve that remaining period, and then at the end of that, there's 2 less council positions. Yeah.
Got it, okay. Yes, 4.
Mr. Banker.
I think the charter is pretty clear on how to do this. I want to stick with it.
Stick with it's treated as a tie, and then, yeah, understood.
Ms. Livingstone.
I think Councilmember Notaro summarized it pretty well, and I'm in agreement with having an election. It makes sense.
Mr. Roberts.
So one scenario that we didn't really talk about yet. So let's say, for example, we have 4 spots and we only have 3 people that actually register. So then all 3 of them. When, what do we, I'm just curious.
And we would appoint the vacancy thereafter.
We would appoint a vacancy. Okay, got it. Yeah, so I'm in favor of the votes. People will be voting on the charter items anyway. So that makes sense to me.
I'm still, I'm in the mindset that if we have 4 candidates, that anyone who is interested in a short term, sort of a trial size, they should be given that opportunity. And then the other 3 would do a full term, and then you don't even have to have the names on the ballot. It would cure itself.
Understood. I think I have my consensus direction. I will, of course, look at this particular aspect of this. Member Banker, your point on the charter is well taken. It could be treated as a tie, much as you would treat it as they have all voted for themselves, and it's a 4-way tie. That would be the result absent some direction. If for some reason, in reviewing that, my analysis changes, because this was an on-the-fly issue I spotted, I will let you know.
Okay. We still need to vote on the resolution, Mayor. All right. So we are voting on resolution 2023-10.
As written. Yes,
as
sir.
written.
And you already have your motion and your second.
Patty, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Banker?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Chester?
Yes.
Councilmember Livingstone?
Yes.
Councilmember Notaro?
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shirley?
Aye.
Mayor Gaddis?
Aye. So resolution 2023-10 passes unanimously. And we'll move forward with that as written. All right, we are on to item number 19, unfinished business. Do we have any unfinished business we would like to discuss?
Wait.
18. We got 18.
Resident City Manager.
I lost the page. 1 second.
Right here.
There you go.
Oh, thank you. Okay. That's funny. Authorize the city manager to grant easements to Duke Energy Florida LLC. Before we go to the council for comments and a vote on this, would the citizens like to speak? No citizen comments. Citizen comments are closed. All right, this is placed on the agenda by City Manager Riefler. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is an item we discussed in the last work session. This is an easement at Crossman Park. Duke is requesting to place switchgear equipments that have to do with the undergrounding of the Gulf Boulevard on the eastern side. Like I mentioned before, the idea when designing this project was to try to keep all the equipment as much as possible off private property. In some instances, It was unavoidable and residents have cooperated and given easements to Duke Energy to make this project go. This is an opportunity where the switchgear can be placed on the public land of Crossman Park, and it's a city's decision to allow that easement for the purpose of the undergrounding project. I've included the easement itself, the map of where the two switchgear will be placed in Crossman Park, which is going to be the northwest part of the parcel. And also they gave us a sort of a rendering of what the equipment would look like in the park.
Thank you, Mr. Reefer. Before we move forward on this, I'm going to need a motion to authorize the city manager to grant easements to Duke Energy Florida LLC. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion made by Frank Baker. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Mayor Shirley. Mr. Baker, you have the floor.
Those two boxes, junction boxes to the left, are they gonna be removed?
No, those remain, that's communication.
All communication? Both of them?
The one looks like it is power.
The little one should be
Yeah,
communication.
the little one's communication. And the in-ground box is communication as well.
Okay.
It's in front of it. Let me get clarification on the little small electrical box.
That's all.
Any other,
Kyle, I have a question. It looks like the house on the corner, on the opposite corner, has a box or something going in there. I'm gonna assume that easement's already been granted, but I realized today they're digging footers for a wall there. Has that been taken into consideration?
Yes, that wall has been taken into consideration the entire project. It was actually, as you know, that it was trenched and left filled for quite some time. It's because it's a unique piece of property where our usual rules in our ordinances for walls don't apply because it's completely the county's right away with their line of sight for their intersection. So they did get involved after we approved it per our code. And then they've actually had to back the wall off of the property line closer to the house itself and reduce the height of the wall because of the intersection.
But Duke's been part of this process.
Duke's been
is
a
my
part of
question,
this entire
because the
process.
footers are huge. I mean, as they should be for a block wall. And I just noticed that them digging them this morning, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, they're fully aware.
Okay,
I was shocked that a single person was out there digging that trench.
by hand.
Female.
Really?
It was a female.
Wow. Okay. Any other questions or comments on this topic? No? All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, you are authorized.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, now let's move to item 19, unfinished business. Do we have any unfinished business? No? All right, I think everyone's probably getting ready to go.
Mayor. Yeah. I know I didn't get this in on the city manager report. I just want to mention that Officer Klapka did point out that the sergeant was called into an emergency that was supposed to be here to do the report. So it was actually a situation where a lot of officers were needed.
Good. I mean, not good, but you know what I'm saying. At least we have an excuse. Okay. All right, well, in that case, let's just move on to item 20, council comments. You know what, Mark, I'm going to skip you this time. I'll come back to you next to last. All right. All right, so up next is Council Member Roberts.
Thank you, man. Again, I want to, I came in, I think, a week ago and was talking to Patty about some other issue. And that's when she told me about her news. And it sort of just took the breath out of me for a moment that she's going to be retiring. So I wish her nothing but the best. I know she's going to spend a lot of time with her grandchildren, she informed me. So I know you'll enjoy that. So have fun with it. You're welcome. One quick question to the city manager, which is, have we had any candidates express interest in the maintenance worker position?
Yes, Community Services Administrator Aaron Glanz has been interviewing. I think he's done 4 up to this point.
Oh, awesome.
So yes, we've had interest and I know he's really looking at them all because he's trying to find that perfect fit
Great.
for our team.
Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. Up next is Councilmember Matero.
No comments.
No comment. Mr. Bankard.
Just a couple, about 2 weeks ago, I don't know how many people got knocked on their door by FEMA on a Sunday, asking if there was any flood damage. My first question to the federal official was, what's the NFIP insurance lawsuit going on? Huh? Typical government response, didn't know what anything I was talking about. I tried to talk to the Attorney General because she's part of this, still in limbo. So I don't know, most people flood insurances are probably paid this year going forward. I don't know where this is going to go. Senator Scott's office is still working on it. Patty, you've been a jewel to this city. I am going to miss you deeply. I think this whole city owes you salute. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Bankard. Up next is Councilmember Livingstone.
Well, I was very surprised as well to hear about Patty's retirement. Patty, I wish you the best, and I know we have a month left together, so we're going to hopefully spoil her rotten as she well deserves. So we are going to miss you tremendously, but glad that you get to spend time with your family. Mr. Hayward, appreciate you applying. Please consider, like Mayor Gaddis said, consider some of the other appointments within the city. I think that you'll find that you'll get to know the council more and there'll be lots of opportunities. So please consider that. You were an excellent candidate. So thank you for applying.
Thank you, Ms. Livingstone. All right, up next is Councilmember Chester.
I'm just briefly, Patty, I'm not big on coincidences, but I hope my joining the team doesn't have any bearing on why you're bailing out. I do hope you enjoy your time with your grandchildren. Just, you may find that you have a little less and less with them as you spend more time with them, because yeah, kids are a joy, and it's fun to stir it up and then leave it to the parents, grandparents. So it's I'm sorry I won't get the chance to work with you for very long, but you've been really wonderful anytime I've had to come in and ask any questions about anything. So I appreciate your years of service. Enjoy retirement. It's wonderful.
Thank you, Mr. Chester. Up next is Vice Mayor Shirley.
I just want to thank both Mr. Chester and Mr. Hayward for stepping up. We really have people step forward, so we really appreciate your considering taking a position. And there are always positions available. You might get with Patty because she may have some openings right now, but that and council changes often. So certainly stay in the loop. Thank you very much, and I appreciate both of our candidates. And you know, when Patty called me with her phone call, the first thing I said was, well, I'm not happy about you retiring. And then I had to rethink that and said, well, I'm glad you're retiring, but you will definitely be missed. And, you know, I know we have another month of time with you and, you know, look forward to spending some more time with you, but enjoy it. And thanks for everything you've done. I know you've been here almost as long as I have. So it's really nice to have that longevity in a city position. We've had a lot of turnover over the years, so it's just nice to see the same face every day. So hopefully we can find another person that will stay as long as you did. Do we have anyone in the office that might have an interest in a clerk position, or?
I'm not aware of any at this point, but we do have some prospects that we're looking to hopefully pull in.
Good. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Shirley. All right, this is normally the time whenever I get on my stump about beach nourishment. I think while things are going all right, I'm just going to keep my mouth shut on that. Also, Patty, I echo all the sentiments that you've heard tonight. It's been an absolute joy and pleasure to work with you, and I really do. I hope you are able to enjoy your retirement and spend time with those grandkids. That's all I have for tonight. If anyone would like to make a motion to adjourn, I would entertain that. Mr. Banker, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, good night, everyone.
We've got a workshop. We've got another meeting in 2 weeks.